Your new house is on fire. Are you okay? You better call the fire department quickly. I received a call from my mother-in-law, Dana, and immediately drove my car home. It's hard to believe, but my house is burning. Why on earth? In a panic, I called Dana back. Jace is sleeping at home. Please call the fire department quickly. What? Exclaimed my confused mother-in-law Dana at home, unaware that her husband, my father-in-law Jace, is sleeping. When I asked Dana about the fire, an unexpected answer comes back. 2 years ago, I married, and this year gave birth to our son Edwards. With that, we bought our first home. Martina, we finally bought our dream home. I'll work even harder from now on. That's my husband Jace, smiling at me. We have a pretty big mortgage, so you better work hard. Joking around, we laughed together. Even now, married with a child, we can still joke like this, maintaining a good relationship. However, it's been tough building a good relationship with Dana. Dana harbors a lot of hostility towards me. This has been the case since Jace and I decided to marry and went to greet the in-laws. Nice to meet you. I'm Martina. I greeted my in-laws for the first time, nervous. Don't be so formal. Please take good care of Jace. It was my father-in-law Samuel who eased my tension. Samuel, a big, well-built man, was very gentle and kind. So, you're the woman who's come to take our Jace. Dana spat out a line straight out of a drama. Mom, that's no way to talk. Jace defended me. Jace, what about me? You're taking away the son I've raised. And scolded Dana. Dana's reaction to being scolded by Jace was shocking. I had heard from Jace before that she was overly affectionate, but this was beyond my expectations. By the way, Martina, was it? What do your parents do? Dad passed away when I was young, and Mom is a nurse. I am a nurse too, just like her. Raised by a single parent, huh? I can't entrust Jace to someone who hasn't received proper love. How rude to say such a thing upon first meeting. Yes, I was raised by a single parent, but I believe I grew up loved by my mom. If she continues to insult my mom, I thought of leaving immediately. That's when Jace stood up. Enough. No matter what you say. I'm marrying Martina. Mom, if you oppose the marriage, that's fine. But if you continue to interfere, I'll cut ties with you. Jace, why would you say that? You're abandoning me. Martina, let's just leave her and go. Jace and I left Dana, who was dramatically crying, greeted Samuel, and left the in-laws' house. I'll definitely take back Jace. I thought I heard Dana say that as we were leaving the entrance of the in-laws' house. But I decided to ignore it, feeling scared. Dana, perhaps affected by what Jace said, didn't interfere with the wedding and behaved quietly. Half a year into our marriage, pregnant, Jace and I went to report to the in-laws. Samuel was extremely happy, but Dana had another sarcastic comment. I can't believe someone raised by a single parent is having a child. Don't you even know how to love? Dana still assumes that being raised by a single parent means not receiving love. If that were true, I'd have become a troublemaker long ago. I thought about saying that to Dana, but held back. Now that you're pregnant, what about your nursing job? Quit? No, I haven't quit, but I'm taking maternity leave. You're not just dumping all the housework on Jace, are you? No, I'm not. Jace said he'd help, so we plan to share the chores. There, I knew it. Making Jace work after he's tired from his job. That's so pitiful. Jace was at a loss for words at Dana's remark. Hey, let's leave it at that. Martina and Jace are both troubled. Dana looked like she wanted to say more, but calmed down after Samuel's intervention. Please bring the grandchild over to play when they're born. Samuel said this to me with a gentle expression. Of course, we're looking forward to bringing them over. 8 months later, with Jace's help, I successfully gave birth to our son Edwards. A year later, we thought it was a bit early, but decided to buy our first home. Thinking it's better to start paying off a mortgage early, we went for it. We invited the in-laws to our home for a modest dinner party to celebrate the new house and Edward's first birthday. Wow, what a splendid house. Congratulations on the new home. And happy first birthday to Edwards. Samuel praised our home and also wished Edwards a happy birthday. As for Dana, she entered our home without saying anything and looked displeased. Thank you for coming today. Really? Why should we have to come for you and our grandchild? It's good to see Jace, though. Dana grumbled as she sat on the living room sofa. So, Mom, don't talk like that. Let's have dinner instead. Jace calmed Dana down, and the dinner party started. For a while, we had a reasonably good time. Then Edward started crying, suddenly making the room noisy. What's wrong? Are you hungry? I rushed to Edwards and tried desperately to soothe him. But Edwards wouldn't stop crying. Stop that loud crying! Quiet down now! Dana suddenly yelled. Enough! Your lack of love is why he's wailing. You can't even calm your own son. That's why I didn't want you marrying Jace. Dana kept ridiculing me for being a single parent. Angry, I retorted to Dana. Love has nothing to do with it. Children can only communicate by crying. What's your problem with that? If you can't stand the crying, please leave. If you insist, I'll go. I've seen Jace's face anyway. Let's go, you. Jace, staying with a worthless woman will make you worthless too. You're always welcome to come back. Dana said this and forcibly took Samuel home. Yelling at Edwards like that? She's out of line. I felt relieved that she left. I'm really sorry about today. Mom was rude. Honestly, I didn't expect her to yell at her grandchild. I feel bad for Dad, but let's not see my parents for a while. Jace seemed to think the same as me. I was about to suggest keeping our distance. Yeah, let's stop for a while. We talked it over and decided to sleep, exhausted from the day. 3 days later, I received a call from Dana on my mobile phone. Hello. I'm sorry for being rude the other day. I shouldn't have yelled at Edwards. Would you like to come over to my house to make up? I've prepared a meal. Jace isn't here, but please take your time. Dana's voice was unusually gentle. I found Dana's different demeanor creepy, but decided to go to the in-laws' house. Okay, I'll bring Edwards and head over. After driving for about 30 minutes, I arrived at the in-laws' house and pressed the doorbell, but no one came out. Is Dana not here? That's when I received another call from Dana. Hello, I've arrived at your house, but where are you? Your new house is on fire. You better call the fire department. Dana said this and hung up. My house is burning? What does she mean? As I stood there, unable to comprehend, Dana sent a photo. It was unmistakably my house. I immediately called Dana back, but she didn't answer. This is bad. Jace is still in the house. In panic, I kept calling Dana relentlessly. 10 minutes had passed. I didn't want to believe it, but if that photo was real, Jace was in danger. Jace had left for work in the morning but returned early, feeling unwell, and was sleeping in the upstairs bedroom. Just as I decided to ignore Dana and head home, she called back. Why are you calling so much? Is it true my house is burning? That's what I said. Didn't I send you the photo? Dana, where are you? Call the fire department, please. No need to panic. The neighbors must have called them. How can she be so nonchalant? Her son's house is burning. Jace should have been at work now, but Dana didn't know he'd come home early due to feeling ill. Dana showed no intention of calling the fire department, which angered me. If left like this, Jace could die in the fire. Dana, listen. Jace is sleeping in my burning house. He might die. I tried to stay calm and inform Dana, still in disbelief about the fire. What? You're lying. Why is Jace at your house? What? Jace? Jace? Dana became frantic when I told her Jace was in the burning house. She was so distraught that she couldn't hold a coherent conversation. Please calm down. Call the fire department first. I'm on my way. If you're still near my house, please ask the neighbors to evacuate. I told Dana to prioritize saving lives. As a nurse, I've seen many people brought in due to fires, often too late with their lungs burned and unable to breathe. If people are aware of the fire, it's good, but some might not have noticed. But Dana, still panicking, asked what to do. That's why I'm saying I'm coming back now. Prioritize saving lives. I was so upset, more than I usually would be with Dana, but I had to act, otherwise Jace could die. The house can burn down, but Jace can't come back if he dies. I yelled at Dana over the phone and hung up. I understood the feeling of panic at the thought of your son dying. I wasn't sure I could stay composed in the same situation, but staying panicked wouldn't save Jace. He must be all right, but what if something happened? Anxious and fearful, I hurried in my car to my house. After driving for about 30 minutes from the in-laws' house, I finally arrived at mine. My house was engulfed in flames, almost unrecognizable. Please move aside, excuse me, move, please! Amidst the chaos, I heard paramedics carrying someone on a stretcher. It must be Jace. I approached the paramedics. He might already be a charred body. Excuse me, I live here. Was someone just carried out from this house? When I asked the paramedics with a trembling voice, they showed me the person they were carrying on the stretcher. My fear was realized. It was Jace being carried out. Jace! Jace! Answer me! Jace, lying on the stretcher, was covered in burns, and it was unclear if he was even alive. I wanted to go to the hospital with Jace in the ambulance, but I was told I had to stay for a scene investigation. Dana also had to be questioned, being the first to discover the fire at our house. After about an hour of investigation, I was finally allowed to leave and hurriedly took Edwards to the hospital where Jace was taken. At the reception, I was told Jace was in a private room, and I immediately went there. Jace, this can't be true. Entering the room, I muttered in disbelief. Jace was lying motionless, his body wrapped in bandages. I thought Jace had died. Overcome with grief, I hugged him and cried. Why did this happen, Jace? Please respond.
Don't kill me off. It hurts. Let go.
Jace's voice was weak, but he responded. Jace was alive, contrary to what I had feared. Overwhelmed with relief, I hugged him even tighter. I thought you were gone. I'm so glad you're alive. Jace's doctor said that while his burns were severe, his life was not in danger, and he could return to daily life after a period of hospitalization. However, there was a chance that he could suffer some after effects, especially on his badly burned left side. Jace himself probably didn't want to believe that there could be lasting effects. But for me, just having Jace alive was a blessing. The mere thought of losing him was unbearable. That night, I was allowed to stay in Jace's hospital room. The next day, I couldn't shake off my suspicion about Dana, who had called me first about the fire. Normally, if her son's house was burning, she would have called the fire department before telling me. Moreover, she had called me to the in-laws' house, but she wasn't there, and it was she who informed me about the fire at our house. I don't want to think about it, but maybe? Reluctantly, I called Dana and went to the in-laws' house. Samuel and Dana invited me in to discuss the previous day's events. How is Jace? He is badly burned, but his life is not in danger. There might be after effects, though. Dana covered her face with her hands, visibly shaken. Her expression was unreadable, but she was clearly disturbed. Sensing something suspicious, I discreetly turned on the voice recorder on my mobile phone. I want to ask you directly. Yesterday, you called me to this house, but when I arrived, I didn't see you or your car, and there was no response when I rang the doorbell. You were the one who told me my house was on fire, right? How did you know my house, which is a 30-minute drive away, was burning? It was a coincidence. I was going to pick you up. But I said I was coming over on the phone, didn't I? Why didn't you tell me you were coming to pick me up then? I thought of it after hanging up the phone. These things happen. Is that so? Let's assume that's the reason. But why didn't you call the fire department before telling me? Normally, if your son's house was on fire, you'd call them, right? But you didn't do anything until I said Jace was sleeping there. You couldn't have set the fire, could you? I had long suspected Dana might have been responsible for the fire at our house, I wanted her to clearly deny any involvement. But after my question, Dana stopped talking.
Come on, Martina is asking. Say something.
Samuel urged Dana to respond, who had fallen silent.
It's your fault.
Finally, Dana slowly began to speak.
You took Chase away from me. I thought if the house burned, your relationship would sour and he would come back to me. But I never thought Jace would be asleep there.
I wanted her to deny it. My wish crumbled away, tragically unfulfilled. It seems Dana was indeed the one who set the fire. I can't believe you actually started the fire. I've recorded your statement on a voice recorder. I'm going to take this to the police. As I showed the voice recorder to Dana, I declared my intention to go to the police. Honestly, I'm relieved Jace is alive. But what if he had died in the fire? What were you planning to do then? You would have killed your own beloved son.
I'm sorry,
Dana apologized in a weak voice.
Don't mess with me, idiot. What have you done?
Usually calm, Samuel now struck Dana in a fit of anger.
You cause trouble for others, and even try to kill your own son. I was a fool to marry someone like you. I don't ever want to see your face again. We're getting divorced today.
What? Dana was stunned by Samuel's sudden declaration of divorce. Unable to say anything, just looked down.
So your silence means you agree to the divorce. Then get out of here.
Please, I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I regret it. Please don't divorce me. Don't abandon me. Dana pleaded with Samuel, crying.
Abandon you? I can't live with someone like you who tries to burn down her son's house.
Disgusted, Samuel rejected Dana's pleas. Indeed, Samuel was right. Dana, what you've done deserves Samuel divorcing you. You might spend many years, even decades, in prison. Dana fell silent at my words. Perhaps she hadn't realized that her actions could lead to a prison sentence. Collapsing to her knees, Dana, usually full of snide remarks, was now silent, seemingly losing her sanity. Well, I'll be going now. Good luck with your prison life. Leaving the in-laws' house, I went straight to the police station and submitted the voice recorder recording as evidence. That recording became the decisive evidence, and Dana was arrested that day. Despite her constant criticism of me for being a child of a single parent lacking love, it turned out she was the one devoid of it. Burning down her son's newly bought house, almost killing him? For someone who could set fire to her son's house, there was no place to talk about love and care. She can reflect for a lifetime in prison. Looking at the ruins of my burnt house, I thought this. Having lost our home, we decided to stay at my parents' house while Jace was hospitalized. It's been a while since I've been back home. We've decided to rent an apartment once Jace is discharged, so we'll stay with my mom for a while. A month later, Dana, charged with arson, was sentenced to life imprisonment. Although we wouldn't receive any compensation or cover Jace's medical expenses due to her life sentence, I was happier knowing we would never see Dana again. Fortunately, Jace recovered well and didn't suffer any lasting effects. The scars from the burns were still painful, but the doctor assured us they would heal over time. A week later, Jace was discharged.
Can we stop by my parents' house before we go to our new apartment?
Jace asked, and we decided to visit the in-laws' house first.
Martina, Jace, I'm so sorry.
Samuel immediately apologized deeply as he welcomed us.
I've divorced Dana. She'll pay for her crimes alone in prison. I've told Jace over the phone.
He handed me a large bag.
It's not much, but please accept this. You lost your new house and had a mortgage. I can't make up for what my ex-wife did, but I feel responsible.
I looked at the contents of the bag he handed me. Inside the bag was $300,000. I can't accept this. Shocked by the amount, I refused.
Please, take it. I wish it could be more. It's my responsibility, too.
Reluctantly, I accepted the money, overwhelmed by Samuel's insistence.
See you later, Dad.
As Jace and I were about to leave, Samuel stopped us.
Martina, I know it's hard to come here with everything that's happened. But would you visit sometimes with Jace and Edwards? It might be selfish to ask.
Of course we'll visit, Samuel. Please play with Edwards. With tears, Samuel nodded in agreement. Our dream home was gone, but as a family, we resolved to start over from scratch, dreaming of one day living in our own home again.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.